Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention Podcast. Today, I am delighted to have Matej Lancaric on with me. We've got a lot of fun topics that we're going to dive into today. I also love our background. So I don't know if there's going to be any videos out, but we've got your daughter's changing table in the background.
Yeah.
I don't have my sons because I'm actually in the office today, but I did come relatively recently from the gym. So I'd probably get a lashing from my wife about, not looking like a CEO today. So I still kind of gym clothes on. So, we're kind of in the same boat, but
exactly.
Today we're going to be talking about a really fun topic, and that is user acquisition. And, I traditionally have been a little bit more on like the live ops, game design, economy type stuff. But UA, even if you look at like a successful game studio, right? Like what are their costs over time? And it's like 80 to 90% just in that user acquisition.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And I know that that's pretty much all you do. So, before we actually dive in, can you just tell us a little bit about like your story and where you're at today and kind of what you're doing, how you work with game studios?
Sure, of course. Also, thank you very much for having me on the pod. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. So, where to start? I mean, I've been in the industry for like 9 years already. Started here at Pixel Federation, which is the biggest game dev company in Slovakia, where I'm originally from, and I'm based here. I mean, I'm based in my daughter's room. That's my office now. But I was there for 5 years. Their game started on Facebook, kind of us back in days. And I was the soft launch owner and global launch owner of all the games, reported everything to mobile, was working on the soft launch framework, global launch UA strategy as well. Also doing the hands-on work on those campaigns. And I learned everything I know there. I was there for 5 years. Then joined one other marketing agency here in Slovakia, which is working with gaming as well. Build a team there, like the UA plus creatives from 0 to 25. That was also nice experience, a nice ride. But like 2 years ago, so thought life's short, let's try something else. And I've been doing the UA consultancy. I can't say since then, because I was already like doing these side gigs here and there at Pixel Federation, because I wanted to learn more about like different games, different genres as well. Because obviously different games and different companies have different challenges, and I love to solve those. So now it's just an independent consultancy type of thing, where I just work with multiple companies on the strategy level and hands-on work, because I still love to get my hands dirty and manage the campaigns. But I also, I still love it. I don't know why, but it still makes me happy. Yeah. And I also have my own creative team of like 10 motion designers that, I trust them with my UA life, and they're very close to me and helping me optimize all the creatives and refresh the campaigns. So yeah, that's very briefly it. I mean,
that's great. So of your kind of consultancy, what, like, if I'm a game studio and listening, like what size studio or game or a point in the game, like, does it make sense to work with someone like you?
Yeah, I always love to get as early as I can on the project. I mean, my favorite topic is soft launch, and I've wrote a lot of soft launch pieces on this topic. So, I mean, there is always a good chance that we jump in when the soft launch is starting, but even before soft launch is actually happening, there are some activities that can be done even in the pre-soft launch phase. So depends on the needs of those studios out there. I don't like to say, you need to spend 50K a month just to be able to work with me, because that's not how it works. I mean, yes, with higher budgets, there's like a lot of other activities you need to do, but it's not all about spend, but maybe, about the point where the game is. But as a UA or marketing person, you can do a lot of stuff around the game, even if it's not out yet.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Cool. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, mobile in general has, it started in the early days where you could pretty much just like make a game and you would have like hundreds of thousands or millions of people just like finding and downloading your game and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And over time, it's gotten more and more competitive. And I feel like somewhere in like the 2016, 2017 realm, it started to get like bloody competitive, where
crazy as hell.
Right. And it's kind of stayed that way, to different extents and stuff. And we won't get into IDFA, but I know that's kind of changed up things a lot too. But it's basically gone from, you can't just build it and like they will come, to really like performance driven, UA marketing. And I think we're getting more and more into this world of a red ocean competition, regardless of your genre or anything else that's going on there. And so, yeah, you hear about some people that are like, oh, well, if you can just find a pocket of blue ocean, like you can do stuff. And like, okay, maybe to a point, like if you come up with Merge Mansion, you can like do that. But now there's how many merge games that are out there, and it's just, exploding in terms of competitiveness. And a lot of that, I think, ties back to user acquisition and stuff. Now, there's been an interesting trend though. I'm seeing some of these new, I'm going to call like upstart studios that have started post like 2017, like after that like bloody annihilation, where a lot of these like early studios that relied heavily on organic traffic and stuff that have really deterred, where some of these other ones are just like coming in and starting to dominate, like Dream Games. Like nobody thought that Match 3 had like a huge opportunity to just like come in and
well, let's just stop there. I mean, if you think about it, really, that company, I mean, all the founders were big games.
Right.
They know exactly what they are doing. They know all the background shenanigans that we don't see. I mean, we don't see that, of course, but they know how the genre works. They've been there. They built Toon Blast or Toy Blast, and now, of course, they said like, yeah, well, we can build it even better. We can build even better game. That's why the Royal Match is now scaling so heavily. I mean, you could see the interview with the CEO. Like he said, look. So we are able to scale the game thanks to the fact that we have really high LTV. And they are now optimizing for, I think, 1.5 years payback period, which not so many companies can afford, obviously. But now, they started spending a couple of thousands a day. Now they're spending $1 million a day. But, they're going to see the money back in 1.5 years. Of course, I mean, they raised to 255 million again after their previous raise. So again, you need to have the knowledge and the game design expertise, and with Match 3 genre, that's even like more difficult, and that's more needed to be able to grow the game.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like Royal Match is a phenomenally
definitely
great game. I can't even play Candy Crush now that I've played Royal Match, because it's just like, I don't know how they do it, but like nearly every turn, like I always end it with like the +5 moves, and I finally set up like the bit. Like it's just so brilliantly done.
It's really well made.
And they have like a cadence where like every 20 levels, I know there's going to be like a new mechanic that they introduce, and then it's going to be easy and fun, and then it's going to be like super hard, but like once I beat that, then I get like an extra fun. It's just beautifully done. So not to underwrite that, like I think in order to compete in the red ocean, you've got to have a superior product, and I think they do have a superior product to Candy Crush and some of those other things out there. But another one that I find particularly interesting is Triple Dot. And again, some of them kind of hail from Turkey and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar story.
And my wife recently started playing Block Puzzle, just a lot. So I was like, well, it seems like an interesting game. And so I started like learning a little bit more about like Block Puzzle and stuff. And Block Puzzle is an interesting one because it came out in what was it, like 2017, like the beginning of it. And it's a very simple game. You've got a grid, you fill it up. Like once you get to the end of the rows, it like goes away, and you basically just try to compete on it. No in-app purchase, like nothing. It's like just ad-based games. After each time you play a game, you get an ad. And yeah, she's been playing that a lot. probably for like a month now. And they've probably gotten a lot of ad views out of her.
Yeah.
But then, you know, looking around a little bit more, Triple Dot came up with Woodoku, which is fundamentally exactly the same as Block Puzzle. Now they've added a little different mechanic of instead of the 8 rows, it's 9, and you can also destroy like little squares like a Sudoku versus just like the straight across. But otherwise, everything else about that game is exactly the same. And that came out in 2020, 3 years after Block Puzzle should have already completely dominated the market. And had this, and I think Woodoku has scaled up to something like 5 million daily active users, and I find that very interesting. And so I wanted to kind of come up with a hypothetical situation. So
very good.
I happen to
let's do that.
I happen to own a URL. Well, a company does own a URL for Thinkery with a Y, thinkery.com. We bought it for something unrelated and we never actually used it, but I just noticed that it was still out there. So I was like, and I was playing around in Unity. They had like an asset sale and I saw, hey, there's like a little block puzzle type thing. So, you know, what if we took the full game, reskinned it, and now we've got a Thinkery game, because Thinkery kind of goes into that brain teaser type genre and stuff. So, you know, now we've made a game that is very similar to Woodoku, very similar to Block Puzzle. Pretty competitive. Both of them are churning a lot of money in UA spend. Like it looks like Woodoku is getting a couple million at least downloads per month. Block Puzzles around at least 1 million. So, you know, and I think there's other games like this too. So is it possible for me to take this game and actually successfully launch it kind of in this, you know, competitive type market space? Or, you know, is there something that I need to do further in terms of like changing or adding something else to the game to make it enticing to players?
Yeah. So first thing, I think that your game is going to fail. Sorry, but it's going to fail really, really hard, because you know what you just described is exactly what other clones do, and there's like no added value to the game that they are cloning actually. So you take the assets from the Unity store. I mean, do something. I create the game in a couple of weeks. But, you know, we see the front end, which is very similar to what we see on the other games, but we don't see the back end basically. So, you know, if you build it, okay, fine. Then like Akin from Triple Dot Studio, he's a gaming veteran. He exactly knows what he's doing. The same situation with Dream Games, basically.
Yep.
And I know I had the call with him a couple of years ago, and he said like, okay, so we are going into this direction. You know, we know exactly what we are doing. Amazing. But then, of course, like you have the great product, but then you need to invent something on the marketing side. And I know like that's why I'm here at the moment to talk about it, right? But jokes aside, I mean, if you see what kind of ads Woodoku is producing, and the same thing what kind of Royal Match or Creative's Royal Match is producing as well, there's something in common. I mean, they're using they are both, I would say, oriented more towards female audience.
Yep.
From what I see. So they're first, let's say Woodoku, they're asking the questions like, okay, attacking the IQ of the players, and then try to use the brain teaser and the whole logic around that. And that's something that I've seen that work really well with female audience. But, you know, you need to be creative. So, of course, like, I know, can you solve this? It's not that creative. It's like, okay, you know, how your IQ change if you play the game, and that there are these different moves. So these all elements of the creatives are kind of like working on the female audience, and then like decreasing the CPS quite heavily. Mm-hmm. Of course, all these questions asked in the creatives, at least on Facebook, for example, Instagram, they create a lot of traction in the comment section, and you know, you can see the emojis, answers, and everything there, and that definitely helps with the Facebook algorithm. So you know, you get all these reactions, and that brings the CPI down, and also pushes you up in the auction. So like, that's how it works. So you need to create that buzz around that. and they are doing quite well. If you look at the Royal Match creatives, they are always working with fear and trying to save the king, but it's not fake. That, I mean, it is to a certain degree, but they're still using the game mechanic and the game assets. So it's like somewhere in the middle. The Homescapes and Gardenscapes did it as well years ago. Also, you had to save Austin in a million different situations. This is something that really works on the female audience, probably not going to work on male audience. So that's why, you need to balance it out on the creative side. That's the thing. I mean, if you have a very, very high LTV, then and then find the right recipe on the creative side, then you can spend against that LTV and then like earn a lot of money. Obviously, you can see that on both games.
Yeah.
And then like that comes back to your game. I mean, is the game really adding something new? Do you have already like a creative concepts in mind that would work on the female audience?
Yeah. So let's maybe address a couple things here. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that you can clone to a point, maybe like 70 or 80% of the game, but then there has to be some sort of innovation and change there. And there could be some research that I could do to try to figure out what this should be by like talking to females. So, like talking to my wife, she hates that there's an annoying ad after every level. So, could we innovate there? Maybe not. It might completely tank the LTV, but like here's an example. Right now those games don't have any sort of like booster mechanics like you do see in Royal Match. So maybe our innovation is adding boosters where you can like clear a row, or you can like have an undo, and we try to lean into like an in-app purchase type. Again, I don't know if that's a good idea, but
of course.
That could be some sort of innovation that we could do, that now maybe I could actually draw some of those players that just hate this constant flow of ads. And, we can offset some of those, probably there's still be some ads, but like, can we offset some of those with in-app purchase and still drive up the LTV? So I do think there has to be some level of innovation in the product, whether like the way that we see it and stuff. And then I also think, when we're looking at ads and stuff, it seems like the Wodoku ads that I've seen, and again, I haven't really researched this that much, an idea that I thought would be fun for this podcast. But they seem to correlate very closely to a lot of like the ads that I've seen for like wordscapes, where you're like trying, again, you talked about the IQ and what's your age and things like that. And you see the person like putting it in and you're like, oh, why would you put it there? Like you're an idiot. And then you want to download the game and, and engage in it and stuff like that. So let's say I hire you and I've got the game, we've innovated a little bit. Like think this is going to be, what would your, take be like, if we need to design new creative ads? Like, would you start with the ads that you're seeing in peripheral games like Wordscapes? Would you start with the direct competitors like Wodoku, or would you take it somewhere, completely beyond that?
Most probably I would try a mix of multiple things. What I try to do always, like before jumping in and start like doing the UA for companies, sit down with the team, try to look at the competition, what they are doing, also similar genres, or let's say we have the female audience. I mean, we can see the overlap between the different genres, like you said, the Wordscapes, for example, games. Also, that brings another level to the brainstorming sessions. Looking at the competition and multiple genres, and then trying to find out what exactly is the unique selling proposition of my game, and put that into the creative brief as well. So, like after the brainstorming session, there are like multiple creative concepts that we put on paper, create a creative brief, and then discuss like, okay, so what would be the best and ideal scenario or creative concept that we will use. Usually, again, for the first couple of concepts, it's a mix, because you can do a lot of homework, but still you need to know what exactly works, and you need to see the data. And I know, like, you can't see pretty much the data of the competition. Unfortunately, if you would see that, then life would be definitely easier for a lot of UA managers. And then take it from there. And I also like to create a lot of crazy shit creatives as well. I mean, even for female audience, that's something that works really well, because all the creatives, they need to work with the players' emotions always. That's how it is. So if you can do that in the creative, then you are like winning on the 50%. Then you need to convert them in the store, but that's another question. But then what I see at the moment, and that's what you said also with the innovation. So right now, if I want to start innovating on the creative side, I'm looking always on the hyper casual genre, because hyper casual is now, I mean, there is a downtrend obviously, but still you can see a lot of hyper casuals in the top charts.
Yep.
And a lot of them are also female oriented. So basically taking those creative concepts, and if it's possible to use it within the game I manage at the moment, then I'm adapting immediately. That's something that works so well because of the broad appeal of the hyper casual game. And then if you take that concept, I mean, it's a half fake, obviously, but we need to do what we need to do to decrease the CPIs. And that would be also one experimental concept that I would try to create as well.
Gotcha. I have so many questions, but
nice.
You sparked something. There was a Facebook study that they released, and I forget if it was this last year or the year before that. My brain's scatterbrained a little bit. But they basically said they did a study and they found that only 1 out of 4 people will download an app or game that they don't have prior knowledge to. And what I mean by that is, like, I have heard about Candy Crush either from friends or from TV or somewhere. Like I've heard about this thing, and now I see an ad for it, and it's like, well, actually that looks pretty fun. Like I'll give it a try. But if you've never heard about Genshin Impact before, and no friend has told you how awesome this thing is, you should check it out, and now you see an ad, theoretically 3 out of 4 people wouldn't download that game because there's just no brand awareness about that. Do you think that's actually true?
Well, what I think and what is actually true is that those are like two separate separate things. But I mean, obviously there is certain brand awareness effect if you hit certain amount of downloads, if you run TV campaigns, if you have featuring in the App Store or Google Play Store, or if your friend told you about the game. But like running brand awareness campaigns in order to get players to actually download the game, that's just the Facebook pushing so hard on their region frequency type of campaigns, because they were pushing it so hard back in days, like, hey, you need to do the brand lift test so you can exactly see how that improves the conversion rates on your game. Yeah, to a certain degree, yes, but 80% of that is complete bullshit. So I hope nobody from Facebook is actually listening to this, because I already got my personal account banned for 1 month at the beginning of this year. So I should stop talking shit about Facebook.
With that kind of thing in mind, do you think it's okay, so obviously that's what you said, and we have what Facebook says, and we don't actually know where the truth is, but let's assume for a second that the Facebook data is actually correct, and you're basically wasting 75% of your user acquisition budget on views that people are never going to download your game, in theory. Do you think that it is worth, at some level, trying to do some of this higher level brand awareness type of spend or different things like that? Or is it just better kept within the performance marketing that we can actually track?
Yeah, the thing is, it's how is it different if you spend 75% on the UA, the actual UA you can track, or that 75% on some brand awareness bullshit that you can't even track? And the thing is, even if there is 1 out of 4 players downloading the game on Facebook, that doesn't necessarily mean they won't download your game on other channels because they saw the ad on Facebook. So, like there is the synergy effect if you run multiple.
So it could just be the fact that like, wow, I've been seeing this everywhere.
Yeah.
And now, which,
Exactly.
could be the case with Royal Match, where they've, just been spending so much that it's like, wow, these ads.
I see like 10 ads per day on Instagram or Facebook. It's all Royal Match in different concepts. I mean, they're spending so much money. It's really amazing. I mean,
okay. Now back to our thinkery game for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
You were talking about how it would be nice to see your competitors' metrics and like have a gauge and stuff by that. Now I heard at one point in time that you can cheat and take the ad that a competitor is using and run that and then actually see roughly like what their CPI is. Can you actually do that?
You can do that, but the thing is, even if you do it, you won't see the real CPI because your store doesn't look like the competitor store. So if you run the ad, then you have your own game in the store, and there is like very big misalignment of expectations for the players. So you can roughly see the CPIs, but it's still the CPI will be definitely influenced by your assets.
Because they might be like, oh, that was just a fake ad. Or...
Exactly. Like, what the fuck is this? I mean, I was like, that's definitely not the game I'm seeing in the ad. So like, why should I even install it? And then like your experiment is over. But it is very true that a lot of companies do this type of cheating. And they do this also in terms of icon tests and screenshot tests and whatever. It's like, take your icon and then like, okay, this is performing way better. I need to then adapt my icon to do exactly what my competition is doing. That's how it is. I mean, it's probably not super legal, and I'm not sure how this would be in court or whatever. It's like really, but I mean, a lot of people do it anyway.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Could you take it, and I don't know if you've ever used like a Geek Lab or something like that, but like, could you send them to a fake store that maybe is mocked up like that app and get like a closer approximation?
Again, yes, you can do that as well with Geek Lab or any other tool out there. Hi, Jesse. He's a friend. So basically, you can do that, but still, it's not a real CPI or purchase campaign because you are sending it to fake landing page. There is the button to download. Yes, you can optimize for that type of conversion, but again, it's not the real CPI. And even if it's closer to the CPI you are having on that fake store, it's gonna be very far from what you actually do on the business as usual campaigns, because you optimize for purchases, for value optimization, for any other events. So it's not going to be that relevant. I mean, maybe you could see the trend. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So going back a little bit, you said, hey, your game clone thing is probably going to fail. Are there, other avenues that are still out there? So, obviously if I'm making this game that's kind of like Woodoku, probably it's like an older female audience. Mm-hmm. Hey, guess what? There's an older female audience that like uses Facebook every day still. My mom's audience, because she's on it all the time. I don't actually know, like, are Facebook games still even a thing that you can get on? Like, I remember playing them in college, but then they've kind of like died out. But like, could it be, hey, instead of releasing this on this hyper competitive mobile market, like, could I adapt this and release it as a web-based, Facebook game and maybe have a chance of finding success there?
You can do whatever you want. You can do, but it's like that inventory is shrinking every day. And in 2014 or 15, when we ported everything to mobile at Pixel Federation, it was already like almost dying. I know now, like with the hype about the web-free games and everything is there on browser, maybe we will see some like uplift in terms of the inventory, but it's still Facebook canvas. It's, well, don't even try that. I mean, there's like dead. Zero people. Yeah. And even if there, I mean, of course there is the target audience, but it was like 50,000 people or 500,000 people. mean, yes, it's true that you can make money out of that kind of audience, but most probably it's not going to be in millions, or you won't be able to scale it.
Yep.
Although, earning at least some money is better than not earning anything, right? So you don't need to don't need to have like multi-million revenue a month. It can be in hundreds of thousands and still be very much profitable.
Yeah, but we're probably not going to get to our 5 million daily active users.
Oh yeah.
Where Widoku is.
No way. No way.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, just thinking generally, the idea behind user acquisition is ultimately we want to attract players, right? So we've got our Think Read game. What do you think would be the best way to approach attracting players? Like, is it going to, start with like user interviews and trying to understand the like, hey, why do you play games, or like what are you trying to get out of this? Or where would your starting point be if I said, Matej, here's the game, it's your job to scale it up, it's unlimited budget, like what do we need to do to figure this out?
Yeah, I mean, even if it's unlimited budget, then I would be happy to see any type of interviews you've done before actually creating this game, or any homework you've done in order to create the game in terms of the target audience. And then I'm always trying to start with lower budgets if we don't have any data. So let's say we spend 10K. We'll get on Facebook most probably, because even though it's the quality is decreasing these days, it's still my go-to channel, at least it was. Yep. But I still would spend 10K there just to understand like how the creatives are resonating with the target audience, who is actually the best audience for this type of game.
Would you start broader of just like everyone or all females?
I would start definitely broader, broader, and then step by step narrow it down. Because even though it is definitely female oriented game, we could get some male audience there, and why not to target those?
Yeah.
And then step by step identify if it's really the 35 plus or 45 plus female, or it's male 18 to 24 but female 35 plus. I mean, most likely it's not going to be the case, but it's still worth trying and exploring. Have some kind of data. And then based on the LTV, we will have the discussion like, look, Tom, so the LTV is, I don't know, $5 in US. Our CPI is 4.5. So, I mean, we can try and run some campaigns, but most probably we won't hit 5 million DAUs anytime soon. One thing is like to experiment really like crazy on the creative side, and maybe we will be able to decrease the CPI to what, like $2 in US. That would be pretty good actually, because like then there is a pretty nice margin then we can use for scaling the game. So that if that's something that we will do, then we could go from 50K a month spent to maybe, I don't know, 400,000, 500,000. I'm making this up, but maybe that would be possible. That would be the cap, because I mean, unfortunately, the LTV won't allow us to spend more and scale the game further. If you then say, okay, look, Matej, I will increase the LTV to $10, that opens up a lot of other possibilities. And then also what is important to know is if the $5 LTV is solely ad monetized, or there's in-app purchase as well. If it's ad based, yeah, sure, okay, we can run some campaigns based on the lowest CPI possible. But then if then you will be able to put some IIPs in there, again, that opens up a lot of other possibilities on the campaign structure and everything. So I would probably do that. Yeah. That would be my start.
I like it. For someone, really basic like me, what sort of structures or services or things do I need in place to be able to actually track what my CPI is and actually track what my LTV is?
Well, again, depends on like what is the monetization strategy of the game, but definitely having an MMP in place would be would be a nice start. And then mediation partner as well. I mean, or just starting with any ad network just for monetization in terms of the ads. But as you might have heard that you would need the ad mediation at some point in the future after soft launch just to be really competitive. And then, well, you can still find LTV modeling in Firebase. I mean, it's probably not going to be really the tool you would use, but then using any visualization for that type of LTV curves would be great. Data Studio is for free, but then using Looker or what else is there? Tableau, that would be great. And I mean, in terms of like the CPIs and everything, it's all in the UA channel. So you don't need any like middleman just to have all the UA sources in one dashboard. I mean, you can see it in the MMP anyway, so it's fine. And then the same thing for creatives. There are definitely tools that make your life easier, but you don't need them from the start. I mean, if you spend 1 million a day, like Royal Match, probably need a very extensive creative tool to be able to measure everything. But if you are spending 10K, you don't need that. I mean, you can see all the creative KPIs in all the channels anyway.
Yeah. How many different creatives would you start with if we're doing like a 10K campaign? Would it be like 5, 10, 20?
Yeah, most probably 5. I mean, we need way more than 1 or 2 for the start. But then 5 is if it's enough. And then what I usually do is every week create a new creative concept and then refresh the campaigns. So for 10K, that would be enough. For 100K, 500K is definitely like more concepts on a weekly basis is better.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about ROAS now. Okay. So return on ad spend for folks that are listening, which I'm sure you guys already know. But for our game, how important are ROAS, and is there a certain kind of target that you would look for in, say, an early stage game? Like we talked about Royal Match a little bit. It sounds like their ROAS target is 1.5 years. I don't think most studios can afford to wait a year and a half to get paid back. So, to make this actually scalable and a viable game, what do you think a reasonable target ROAS would be?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what I think for this type of game, most probably looking past day 30 would be, well, definitely killing yourself because it's most probably not viable. But it all comes down to the, your cash flow, your money in the bank account as well, and your ability to get used to risking a little bit. Because of course, I mean, this type of game most probably won't have long-term retention, but there are definitely games out there with pretty good long-term retention, but the companies won't be able to scale because they don't have a lot of money on their bank accounts, obviously. So they need to look at the shorter payback periods, for example, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days maximum. So that's always what I ask the companies, like, hey, so okay, if there is a scaling opportunity, do you have the money to actually scale the game? Because with higher budgets, always the payback period is increasing. So if you spend 30K, you can get the money back in 30 days easily, because you target only your core audience. But as soon as you just grow the budgets, then you open up the targeting, and it's definitely going more broader, and then the payback period also increases.
Is ROAS something that I should think about? I know a lot of games that are in this, what I'm going to call soft launch hell, where CPI is just too far beyond LTV, but like they're sort of getting closer, but like I can't scale them and stuff. Is there a certain point where it makes sense to think about? So, in our earlier example, you said, okay, we've got our LTV up to $5 and our CPI is at $4.50. If our ROAS is, say, like 7 days, and then suddenly we start getting that profit. And kind of what that means is, in theory, if I spend $1,000, I don't know what that is divided by 450, I'm going to end up making, what is that? Times. So I'd end up making $1,111 back. So I end up netting $111.
Yeah.
So after 7 days, or maybe slightly thereafter, I now have that money back, which I can reinvest again. So initially I was able to get 222 downloads. Now I can, do this again.
Just wait, because you, of course, you have that money, but you will receive that money in 45 days from the ad networks, because you don't have that money on the bank account. So that's that's something that's limiting you.
Yep. Unless it's all in-app purchase driven, you get a little bit faster.
But still, it takes a month until you get that money. So you obviously you can reinvest, but until you get the money, well, you need to wait.
So there's a little bit of a lag before I can really do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the general theory is the shorter my period is and the higher that margin is, the more that I can then reinvest in the next batch of users and keep kind of growing my game. So I have heard of some games have, hey, our CPI cost $1, but our LTV is $5, but our payback period is 180 days. And it's actually easier to scale a game that has a lower overall margin, but their, ROAS is a much smaller window there too. So I'm just,
you said that our LTV is $5, but the payback period is 180. So they 180 LTV is $5. What is their LTV on day 7? That's the main question. I mean, if it's 110, 120, you have the answer right away.
Yeah, that's fair. So I guess I was just kind of generally curious from your perspective, is there a target CPI, LTV, ROAS range combination that you would think about of hey, maybe this is ready to actually start to scale up and kind of get out of this soft launch hell range?
Yeah, well, the soft launch hell range is pretty tough. I mean, it's some companies won't even make it from that soft launch hell, but it's good, because even if you are in that hell for 3 months or 4 months and you can't do anything about it, then just that's the time when you kill the game and then move on. In terms of any specific numbers, it's very hard to say. If even when you have the hyper casual games, I mean, their margins are 10 to 20%, which is really small, but their starting CPI is around 20 cents, 10 cents in the US, and the LTV may be around 50 cents, $1. So, if you have definitely let's say margin above 50%, then that would mean you can do a lot of stuff on the UA field. But I mean, that 50% is just out of my, let's say, experience.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit in the last minutes on, there's different types of creatives that you can run. And what I mean by that is placements more. What's your take on an interstitial ad versus a rewarded video versus a playable, and when should you be testing and trying different formats to see what nets you the best CPI and engagement, IPM, what have you?
Yeah, I mean, depends on the UA channel. It's always on the ad networks like Unity, Iron Sword, Vangle, and others. The playables are working way better and having better IPM. So 1,000 installs per 1,000 impressions, and that's the playables on Unity or the ad networks. If you use playables on Facebook, it's not probably going to work, because the use of the playables on Facebook is just terrible. I mean, that's not a good platform for playing for using playables. But if you use static images or even videos, different lengths from 15 seconds to 30 seconds. We've even done the study for the 22.5 second video is performing the best, for example, and stuff like that. That's going to work on Facebook, but I like to use a mix of static images and and videos always, because for some games, for example, cooking games, I found out that the static images are working way better than any videos that I've produced. And it was like really like variety of multiple concepts. So it wasn't like, okay, so I've done shitty job and the videos were terrible, but it's like static images always work better. So it's always the combination. I mean, on ad networks, it can be playables only or videos plus playables. That's something that yields the best results. On the social networks, videos, different lengths and different formats as well. So you're not only using the square videos, but also landscape, 4:5 format, and also vertical format as well, because all those formats can unlock very different inventories, even on Facebook and the TikTok as well, and Snap, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, but using everything always on different channels.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. One final topic, which we could probably spend the whole day talking about, but I know we're almost out of time here. Traditionally, when you hear marketing at non-gaming companies, let's think of like a Tinder or a Spotify or whatnot, most of their work isn't on the performance marketing UA side of things. It's actually marketing like subscription upgrades or other things to like existing users that are there, or sending them emails or pushing it or whatever to like remind them to come back and boost that engagement and retention and stuff like that. Do you think that over time, marketers in games can and maybe should shift a little bit more downstream than strictly being all upstream kind of UA performance marketing driven type such?
Well, it's called community management, basically, not only not only UA part of things. Because what we've done before, let's say for Pixel Federation, we had our community. We tried, very hard to keep them happy as well, and then remind them of the new content. We were working with them as well, and then obviously for all the companies out there, even for social casinos, they have their VIP programs for managing whales. Because also what we had back then, there was one guy from Poland who spent 150K in train station, and that was the guy that everybody was like, oh wow, we need to make him happy, because if he quits, then a lot of our revenue is just going away. So this is always here in terms of the community. Then as a UA managers, we can use the retargeting and re-engagement campaigns, and to a certain extent we do that. Push notifications as well. The email marketing is not that common in games,
especially without GDPR. Yeah, kind of
exactly. I mean, it could be at some point in the future, but not so much. But yes, there's definitely a lot of other marketing activities that mobile gaming marketers could do, of course, but they don't do it because it's like a lot of time, B, not really a huge potential ROAS out of those activities. So it's always about like trying to acquire more new users, and then pointing fingers at the games like, hey, you are the guys, you need to keep them in the in the game. No, just kidding. That was one discussion we had, like, okay, the game team was always pointing at us like, you are getting us really shitty players, and then we said like, yeah, well, like we are getting good quality players, but the game is not keeping them in. So like, hey, where's the truth? Yeah. But then these days everybody is just working alongside product team and game team. We are not working in silos anymore. So that was all the joke I always try to think about.
I love it. Cool. Well, I do have one final question for you, because we are on the Master Retention podcast, of course. And that's, what's one tip or trick or lesson you've kind of learned over the years to increase retention? Like, how do you keep players playing for longer?
Well, first of all, my ultimate tip for any UA marketer is like, try various event optimizations, because those can yield very different retention profiles. And and don't stop like experimenting with those, because from what I found out during the career, let's say we have different towns in the game, so we can use town 1, town 3, town 4, town 10, whatever, as an event optimization goal. But you can also use like, okay, so I want to send an event when one player logs in 5 times a day, and then use that for a campaign optimization. So that would definitely get better retention profiles or better retaining players than the other events. Yeah, and better engagement. Yeah. So that's definitely something I would encourage people to try and experiment.
I love it. That's a great tip. Well, thank you so much, Matej. This has been great. If folks do want to, get in contact with you with questions, or, if they want to use your services afterwards, is there a good way for them to reach out to you?
Oh yeah, I'm always active on LinkedIn. Very similar to you, Tom. Otherwise, like definitely ping me there or visit my website, which is lancaric.me, but it's lancaric.me. That's
Love it. All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
Tom.
so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that's fun. Bye.